Hey, welcome back, listeners, to Off Over 50 and Fired. Now what with Linda
and Shelley.
So in our last episode, we started our series on interviewing and we focused on how to prepare. This week, we're actually tackling the execution part.
Yes, but Linda, we're going to start with our wine recommendation. And folks, I'm back with the reds.
No more whites.
No more whites till next year. The first one I have for this season is a Campo Viejo. It's a Spanish Tempranillo Rioja. It's great, hearty wine on cold days like today. It's freaking freezing out. And it's also very good and tasty. I'm going to give a little bit of pairing here with short ribs and mashed potatoes.
Good job, Jolly. So we move on to part 2 of interviewing. It's all about the execution.
Yes, let's really get into when the rubber meets the road, what actually happens when you're executing the interview.
So first things first, when we're talking about actually executing the interview and making sure that in your mindset you understand the different stages and levels of interviewing, because you're going to have the screening interview, the interview with the reporting manager, possibly with peers to that manager or peers to your role, and also senior management. So you need to make sure that you're ready for that level of conversation that you're going to have. And you're going to be taking different approaches for each, right? So that unless you get nailing down the screening first, you're not going to get beyond that and go to the next stage. So screening is the most important.
Right. So you're absolutely right. Screening gets you to the next stage. And when you talk about screening, some of the things that you have to really consider and focus in on is your qualifications, right, and your results achieved. But you have to make sure that your answers are short and concise. And you want to make sure that you're putting in language that this layperson, whoever it happens to be, HR or internal, or recruiter, inside or outside, that it's not their field of expertise. So you have to say it in a clear, compelling way. And then you also want to make sure that you tick off enough of the job description, that you're hitting all those key qualifications, that you're bringing them up and how you match those so that you can move on to the next stage.
And I think the other thing, maybe it's something that's a little bit softer, is they're also going to be looking about the culture fit and your style. Like, are you going to fit into that organization? So that's the other thing that you want to look at. Make sure you understand the culture of that company that you're targeting and how you can kind of convey that you would fit in that culture.
Right.
So the other one is the hiring manager and or peers to that hiring manager. And really what you want to make sure is that your expertise shines through, that they understand that you are an expert, that you're results oriented, and that you really understand the role and the goals that they're trying to achieve with that position.
Once you get past that stage, sometimes you have to have conversations with, your peers or staff members, that are part of your manager's organization, and you really want to bring to life, your cross collaboration skills, how you really, build relationships, because you need those relationships with key stakeholders to make sure that you have the alignment to drive results into action.
Right. And then the other piece is that you may be asked to interview with senior management, the people that are above actually the hiring manager that you would have for that position. And from that perspective, that's typically you want to make sure that you're ready to kind of convey strategic thinking and have a longer term perspective on the role and the goals it's going to achieve, making sure you understand how you can align the company's objectives and missions with the kinds of results that you can bring to the company. So it's all more about strategic thinking, making sure that you can align yourselves and get that collaboration actually at that higher level in addition.
Right. So we've kind of covered everything that you need to prepare in terms of the different degrees of interviewing that you'll have, the 4 different stages. And I think one of the other preparation item that we need to talk about, Linda, is whether you do the interview in person or if it's online or maybe even on the phone.
No, so for me, Shelley, I think the phone conversation is actually the easiest because you don't have to worry about how you look. You can go in your pajamas.
Yeah, you can have your little slippies on if it's a cold day.
Exactly. And you don't have to get very frantic about getting to the location and all that stuff, and getting on a computer or making sure that your video works and on all of that and setting that up for a virtual session. So the other thing is that's great about a phone conversation, you can have all your notes, references all handy, and you can respond to questions very quickly and easily. I feel the most comfortable with phone conversations. It gives you the most freedom with regard to preparation and feeling like you can answer any question that they may have.
Right. And then also just because you got all your backup material right there, which is really nice. But when you're in person, right, or you're doing it virtually, you don't have that luxury of having all that stuff laying around. And some of the things you have to be mindful of, though, when you're in person or virtual and people can see you, is your body language. And you want to make sure that you're not like slouching and you don't have your arms crossed and you look defensive. You want to make sure that you're making some eye contact with them, right? And that your tone of voice is, it's conveying some sincerity and it's strong.
And that's one thing that even on the phone that you have to do. You have to make sure that your voice is well-paced, that they can understand you. You have a good tone, a friendly manner. And the one thing is you don't want to convey any panic in your voice or anything like that when you're on the phone and or virtual.
Yeah, and also, Lynn, I think one of the things you need to do is just like think about how do you pace yourself with your answers. Because I have a tendency to talk fast. So it's like, how do you make sure you remind yourself before you answer to take a deep breath, and take your time so that people can understand exactly what you're trying to say.
Right. One thing that, especially with people with a lot of experience who are going for more senior roles, the expectation is someone at a more senior level is going to be quieter, more in control, more measured with what they say. So you want to make sure you convey that you are that senior person who can handle potential issues and problems in a very calm manner.
Calm.
That's right. So the other thing is that there are some key interview considerations that you may need to prepare for no matter what the venue, whether you're online or on the phone or you're in person, that we've identified. So we've identified 6 of them that we thought we would share with you to make sure you're off on the right foot.
Right. And so the very first one we wanted to talk about is just being sincere in your answers. You want to make sure that you are conveying sincerity with people because they want to believe you. And you want to build that credibility, so that's important.
Absolutely. I think credibility and trust, you want to make sure that you try to engender that with whether that person is the HR screener or it's the manager. At each level, that's very important to do. And you can only do that by being sincere. All right, and number 2 is watch the length of answers. Making sure that you answer, and what they say is to answer within 30 seconds to 2 minutes. If you go beyond 2 minutes, people are not going to listen to your response. You want to make sure that you can convey the key aspects of the point that you're trying to make or the results that you're trying to show within that 30 to 2 minute window. And make sure that anything where they're asking for factual answers, that you're short and you're quick about them.
I guess you can't go on and on and on. It's not a good idea, right?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay. And then number 3 is really about needing to listen and making sure that you can reiterate and play back some of the challenges or something that you've heard or topics in that conversation, so they really understand you're getting what you've been chatting about.
So number 4 is about asking questions, right? In order to really have a dialogue and exchange and really get a conversation going with that person, you need to also be prepared to listen to what they say and then ask questions back. And also, you should be prepared at the end of the interview to always ask questions about the role, about the company, or other things that shows that you are interested in this role.
And number 5 is about connecting the dots wherever possible. I like the idea about asking questions because what it helps you do then is it sets you up to say, how do you start connecting all the dots? How are all these different things related? About what you've learned either through the conversation or if you've looked at the company's mission, how it all links and how your job role and your unique skill set and all that experience that you're bringing can really come through and help convey, bringing it all to life.
And one of the things that I found is in some of the interviews, they actually sometimes ask you to solve a problem or work with them on a problem, or how would you approach a problem. And so you have to be prepared to kind of think on your feet to be able to how to answer that. I've also been asked to send sample of my work and how I have structured problem solving and how I've approached it. So again, you should be prepared for the interview for that, and also the all-important follow-up from that interview.
Yeah, and to that point, Linda, just having that stuff prepared, where you might have to show examples is really important. So have that stuff ready. because you never know.
Absolutely. All right, number 6, of course, is taking those notes. It's a lot to do in an interview, like listening, getting ready to maybe ask questions and respond, and thinking about all the visual cues, the eye contact, and so on. But it's important that you take notes, and it's important for the follow-up preparation, which we're going to talk about next week. But it's very difficult if you aren't taking notes to understand how you might want to, for example, set up the next interview, what you might want to say and connect with others. You also, if there's any follow-through that you may have to do, you have the notes to be able to do that with. And also, if you just want to have a more personal response to emails and things like that, you have some notes to base that response on.
And I also think it's important to take notes because it shows your level of interest in the whole job process, and the fact that she's taking notes, he or she is taking notes, obviously they're interested in what I have to say or whatever.
It can also help you with sort of trial and error of what's worked and what hasn't as you're taking notes, like where you got stuck, where you may have to improve and things like that. So think about the company and their responses, but taking notes on yourself where maybe you could improve on the interviewing process for the next time.
Mm-hmm. And talking about just the next time for us, join us next week when we finish our series on interviewing as we focus in on the post-interview follow-up, sealing the deal.
So as always, you can find all the resources we've referenced today, including our wine recommendation, which is red today, on our website, www.over50andfired.com. So please give us your feedback and stories as usual.
Right, and if you have any tips or other suggestions, we'd love to hear from you so we can share those as well.
And remember, go on our website and click on Contact Us or email us at offnowwhat@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening. Bye.